This is IBM Museum. So sometimes I need to just slow down the pace and listen to my own advice that I say about using the resources like the Ardent-Tool. And the webmaster, Major Tom, contacted me and says, you must have not read the second half of the message I sent you. Look at those Nikon caps on that PS2 Model 85 K/N, because I had issues there. I had to go through and work on my board. He lists content from that process of which capacitors to look over. And I am on the K/N page that's there on the Ardent-Tool. And I was linking that in my videos, but never went further. I mean, I even had video content that I didn't release where I tried a Corvette adapter in there just to think, oh, I'll go through and disable the planar SCSI and use a Corvette adapter. But I didn't slow down enough to read and to just take a little bit more focus on this section here of the blown Nikon capacitors. And there's a reference to 3 of the capacitors on the board that have been found bad before on other boards, other planars, for the people that have this PS2 Model 85 K/N. And I do have a new tool that I've been using on videos, and this is actually live. I mean, I have my light ring, and I've got the resource of my tool here to this camcorder that I can zoom in and look at and this is the second capacitor that's listed. Certainly I'll zoom in on the other capacitors that are shown here and show what they look like as well. Normally you want to do this observation is best with the planar outside the case, but in this instance I'm able to have my camcorder zoom right in on that section, and this one looks bad. This is undoubtedly what is causing all my issues. I'm going to have to stop this corrosion pretty quick. I mean, it has not been a particularly lengthy period of time, of about a week, that I've been looking over this system and trying to get it going, but I have been running it in the diagnosis periods without doing the first critical step of that diagnosis to look. You know, when I first encountered errors, I should have gone through and I should have looked a little bit deeper at the board. I should have actually read over the reference a little bit more, and I knew it existed. I don't know why. I just was pushing it out of my mind and not considering that. So we see how this particular capacitor looks bad. I'll pause the video and we'll look at a few of the others on the board that this documentation covers. Okay, so the first capacitor that's listed there as C293 under U84. And here that one is over on the left-hand side of the screen. And that doesn't look too bad around it. There's a little bit of a mark to the lower left of that I'm not so certain. But definitely I'm going to go through and I'm going to pull that capacitor out and replace it. It's a known issue that can go bad. I'll also, even though that other K/N functions perfectly, you know, I mean to go through and look at that system as well after I go through and get this system working to make sure that that is not seeing something to a lesser effect already. And to be a little bit proactive in this instance to go through and replace those capacitors as well. This is a known issue with this planar. So let's get focused on the other capacitor that can also be known to go bad. So the other capacitor that is known to have issues is the C504. That's the last one listed. And there are pictures of where these are on the planar. Here is that capacitor. And there is a observable amount of corrosion around that capacitor, just above that. And it's even amazing for all that this capacitor, as far as I know, I've never had the system on its side like we've done for the 65 SX and the other things that we've had on the Skycam, of that big tower just laid out flat on my bench and observing from the Skycam from above. This system has always been on that, with that stand underneath. I've not known instances where it's set, the planar has set flat and had the capacitor leak from what ultimately be the bottom of the capacitor onto the planar below. This just amazes me that corrosion is up above where this capacitor is on the board. And, could be somewhat, or that liquid is a little bit volatile, under charge, or sprayed out a little bit, or some other factor. And this system really has not been in lengthy operation, for any recent years as well. So I've got to go through and start, to nip the corrosion in the bud, and to have the planar out and see if there's any further damage that I need to correct. Just these particular capacitors. And I think perhaps a little bit of my oversight was, I've always felt a little bit lucky in a way that I've not encountered a lot of issues. The IBM systems being pretty good quality builds, not really in the years or the sources of the known bad capacitor areas. I mean, I've had clone motherboards that those, it's very easy to see that the capacitors are pictured exactly as what had capacitor plague in that time period, of even falling off the motherboard. And I always felt that the IBM designs were a little bit more better sourced electronics and using better components a lot of the time. But there are things that can affect these boards as well. And it's just a big knock in the head for me to slow down my pace a little bit and take a look at the reference and RTFM, as they say, just to know a little bit more of what others have found and written down, documented for the benefit of people like me and others, as things to check when encountering errors with these systems. So I will have a video up soon. I have to kind of determine the placement as I go through, and sometimes I'm a little bit tight for having workspace around here, but I can look to go through and get the planar out, get those capacitors removed, look a little bit more at the damage that is there, and go through to what I can do to fix that. It is, disheartening to see this level, and I hope that there's nothing damaged, in particular that first capacitor, the 503, that's shown in the second picture of being in such bad shape. And I may even have a video to where I go through and bring in the camcorder, where I can zoom in just by dropping that power supply. I've got a nice short little tripod I can do with the light ring, to get enough light in there and to zoom in the camcorder on those sections just to show and for me to visually see, you know, whether those known areas have that same damage. So, rather short video, a little bit over 10 minutes, but very much the learning experience for me and I hope others to use those reference materials out there. I'll include the link in the video description about these Nikon caps. I know I've included the page, the entire page in the link before, and when I go through and work on these systems, I need to read a little bit deeper. And even on this page, I referenced installing OS2 and it having, there's a section on particular issues that OS2 can have in that installation that are listed on this page that I was going to take heed of at the time. And I just skipped out over this section somehow. So if you've enjoyed this humbling video of mine, please click on that like button. There's not a humble button on here or any way of denoting through an emoticon of anything. Of course, you can always leave a comment. Those are appreciated. I react to those. It took Major Tom leaving that comment on a video to say, you know, you need to read what I'm sending you, what I have posted on the site, what I've encountered with the system, and just take a closer look. And you know, the other Facebook friend, he was the same way. He said, hey, I know exactly what your issue is. I haven't watched all your videos yet. You've been churning them out so quick, but take a look at this area. And just, they had to thump me in the head a couple times for me to listen. So, subscribe to my channel if you have not already. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.